don't rise to the level of your wishes. You rise to the level of your decisions. Read that twice. There is a moment, and you will know it when it arrives, when you stop bargaining with your own future. You stop second-guessing your ability. You stop waiting for the stars to align, for the timing to feel right, for the fear to go away on its own. And instead, you make a choice, a real one. I will make it. Not because the path looks smooth, not because every detail is clear, not because circumstances have suddenly turned in your favor, but because you have run out of patience with staying the same.
Listen closely. A decision like this isn't a burst of emotion. It is something sturdier than that. It is final. You can always tell a real decision apart from a passing impulse by one simple test. Has new action followed it? Most people never actually decide anything. They hope, they wish, they make a half-hearted attempt, and when it gets uncomfortable, they quietly let it go. But the people who go on to build something, they decide once, and they keep moving. Slow seasons and fast seasons alike, hard months and easy months alike, because they've internalized one truth. Life will test you, and life will also pay you. The payment goes to the ones who stay in the arena, the disciplined ones, the ones who never seriously entertain quitting as an option. So in the pages ahead, we're going to go deep into the mindset, into the grind, into the kind of discipline that turns an average person into someone who simply does not stop until the thing is done. Because here's the truth underneath all of it. The instant you decide, I will make it, no matter what, your life starts moving in a new direction. It won't happen by itself. You have to be the one who tips the first domino. Chapter 1, a decision, not a wish. Let's start at the root. Not a wish, not a hope, a decision. There comes an evening or a morning or some ordinary Tuesday when you get tired of doubting your own judgment, tired of shrinking yourself to fit small spaces, tired of the excuses you've worn smooth from overuse, tired of folding the moment things get difficult. And in that exact moment, something rises up in you and says, I am going to make it, no matter what stands in the way. Pay attention here. Those 5 words can redirect the rest of your life. Not because they're magic. Not because saying them out loud rearranges the universe, but because they rearrange you. They shift your internal posture. And once your posture shifts, your behavior follows close behind. Belief is the foundation. Everything else is built on top of it. Here's the problem with most people, and I say this with compassion, not judgment. They never actually commit to anything. They speak in soft, hedging language. I'll give it a shot. I'm hoping it works out. Maybe one day. There is no force behind language like that. Real force comes from commitment, full stop. The moment you say and mean, I'm going to make it no matter what, you quietly close every exit you'd left open. You stop pre-writing your excuses. You stop demanding ideal conditions before you'll start. You simply begin moving in a different way than you did before. Now understand this clearly. Life is going to test that decision. There will be setbacks. There will be stretches where nothing seems to budge no matter how hard you push. And in those stretches, most people walk away. Not because they lacked the skill, not because the door was actually closed, but because they lost their certainty. The real battle was never the external circumstance. The real battle is the one happening between your own ears. Because when things get hard, your thoughts get dangerous. What if I fail? What if I'm simply not cut out for this? What if it never works? And if you let those questions camp out in your head long enough, you will eventually stop trying. Not from a single dramatic collapse, but from a slow erosion. This is exactly why the statement matters so much. I'm going to make it. Not because you've already mapped out how, but because you've decided ahead of time that stopping is off the table. That decision is what builds your endurance. It's what sharpens your focus. It's what manufactures resilience out of raw material. Because failure stops being a verdict and becomes instead a chapter. People who eventually succeed do the things that people who eventually quit are simply unwilling to do. And high on that list is the willingness to keep walking once the scenery stops being exciting. Most of us are enthusiastic at the start of anything. New gym membership, new business idea, new relationship, new goal. Day one is easy. Day one feels almost effortless. But struggle has a way of draining enthusiasm out of a person fast. Because motivation was never built to last. It's a spark, not a furnace. Commitment, on the other hand, is the furnace. A committed person says, I'll keep going when I'm exhausted. I'll keep going when the progress is barely visible. I'll keep going even if not a single person notices. That, right there, is real power. Quiet, unglamorous, and far more reliable than motivation will ever be. Chapter 2, the architecture of a new mind. Let's go one level deeper. When you repeat to yourself, consistently and on purpose, I'm going to make it, something measurable starts happening in how your brain processes the world. It begins hunting for solutions instead of collecting excuses. The whole orientation of your attention changes. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what's my next move? That single shift in phrasing rewires the entire trajectory of a life.
Because the people who win at anything aren't people who pretend difficulty isn't real, they simply refuse to bow to it. They hold on to something larger than the discomfort of the present moment. Here's something worth committing to memory. Your current situation is not your destination. It's your starting line. Sit with that for a second. You might feel behind right now. You might feel unsure, discouraged, like the gap between where you are and where you want to be is too wide to close. But none of that means your story has ended. It only means the story is still being written, mid-sentence, with plenty of pages left. The instant you decide, I'm going to make it no matter what, you quietly step out of the role of victim and into the role of architect. You stop reacting to your life and start designing it. Here's a warning worth taking seriously. You will need to actively protect this new belief because the world is not neutral toward it. People will doubt you, sometimes the people closest to you, often without meaning any harm. Circumstances will throw up resistance you didn't anticipate. Results almost always will arrive slower than you'd hoped. But don't let a temporary obstacle talk you out of a permanent vision. Hold the picture steady in your mind. Stay disciplined in your actions. Keep your feet moving, even if the steps are small, because a small step taken consistently still counts as motion, and motion compounds. Every single day you choose not to quit, you grow a little sturdier, mentally, emotionally, and in whatever you'd call the deepest part of yourself. Until one day you turn around and realize the very struggle you wanted to avoid is the thing that built you. So say it again, slowly, and mean every word of it. I am going to make it, no matter what. Chapter 3. Stop waiting, start becoming. Here's a phrase worth tattooing on your decision-making process. Don't postpone living until conditions are flawless, because they never will be. Most people are in permanent waiting mode, waiting for the right moment, waiting for a surge of motivation that never quite arrives on schedule, waiting to feel confident before they act, waiting for life itself to soften up and get easier. And while all that waiting happens, the calendar keeps turning. Weeks pass, then months, then years, and very little has actually changed. Why? Because achievement was never a function of waiting. It's a function of becoming more disciplined, more focused, more durable under pressure. Success isn't something you chase down like prey. It's something you attract, almost as a side effect, because of the kind of person you've become in the process of pursuing it. That's the real key most people overlook. The majority of people fixate exclusively on outcomes. The income, the recognition, the finish line, while ignoring the actual process that produces those outcomes. They want the result without the transformation, and that math simply doesn't work, because the life you're chasing requires a stronger, more capable version of you than the one currently chasing it. So ask yourself honestly, who are you becoming right now, today? Your habits are quietly sculpting you. Your excuses are sculpting you. Your discipline, or the lack of it, is sculpting you. Every decision you make, even the small, unremarkable ones, is laying a brick somewhere in the structure of your future. Here's an uncomfortable truth. When conditions get hard, most people stop. Not because continuing was genuinely impossible, but because they secretly expected it to be easier than it turned out to be. They assumed progress would arrive quickly. They assumed results would show up on a convenient schedule. But real growth runs on its own timeline. You can't plant a seed in the morning and expect fruit by lunchtime. That's exactly why patience is non-negotiable. That's exactly why discipline matters more than talent. Because anything worth having gets built slowly. One day, one decision, one unremarkable Tuesday at a time. The hard days are the ones doing the real shaping. Anyone can stay committed when inspiration is flowing freely. Anyone can put in effort when results show up fast. The real test is what you do on the days nothing seems to be working. The days you're tired and unsure and quietly wondering if any of this is worth it. That's where character gets forged. Not in the easy stretches, but in exactly that kind of friction. Discipline, at its core, is simply doing the necessary thing even when your mood says no. And that single trait is what separates the people who eventually arrive somewhere from the people who eventually give up. The ones who make it don't make it because they feel motivated every single day. Nobody does. They make it because they made a promise to themselves and decided the promise outranks the mood. A real commitment sounds like this. I will continue when it's difficult. I will continue when the pace is slow. I will continue even when there's no applause. That mindset, quietly adopted, has the power to completely redirect a life. Let's talk, too, about the people who spend years preparing, but never quite arrive at acting. They read, they plan, they strategize endlessly, but they never take the first real step because they're waiting to feel ready first. Here's the truth nobody tells them. Readiness isn't a feeling that arrives before action. It's a byproduct that's manufactured by action. Confidence is built the same way calluses are built, by doing the difficult thing again and again until your hands toughen up. You become strong specifically by pushing through the seasons that are hard. You become capable specifically by refusing to exit early. A seed doesn't sprout because someone said encouraging words to it. It sprouts because of labor, water, soil, sunlight, time. The same is true for you.
You have to do the actual work, not occasionally when you feel inspired, but consistently, especially when you don't. And consistency is genuinely hard. Distractions will show up uninvited. Temptation to quit will whisper at exactly the wrong moments. But hold on to the original decision. I'm going to make it. Not because the road is smooth, but because your purpose outweighs your discomfort. Every difficult season you're in right now is doing something useful behind the scenes, even when it doesn't feel like it. The setbacks are teaching patience. The failures are teaching judgment. The pressure is quietly building your capacity to endure more than you used to think you could. Nothing in that process is wasted, on one condition, that you keep moving. Quitting is the only thing that genuinely interrupts growth. Continuing, even slowly, even imperfectly, keeps you in the game. And the people who stay in the game long enough are, almost without exception, the people who eventually grow, eventually improve, and eventually arrive. Neither failure nor success is a single moment. Both are processes that unfold over time. So trust that process. Keep becoming, keep stretching, keep moving forward, even when today's progress feels invisible to the naked eye. Because invisible progress is still progress, and it adds up the same way compound interest does. Quietly, then suddenly. Stop waiting for a more convenient version of this moment to show up. This is the moment. Stop waiting to feel confident before you move. Confidence gets built through the moving itself. Stop waiting for life to ease up. Grow strong enough to handle it as it is. And remember this above everything. Every single time you keep going when the going is hard, you become a little more like the kind of person who eventually makes it. Chapter 4. The Refusal. Now let's talk about a particular kind of decision. Not the decision to start, and not the decision to merely try, but the decision to refuse to quit. Because at some point in nearly every worthwhile pursuit, the excitement fades and the difficulty sets in. Progress slows. Results take longer than promised. Motivation, that fickle and unreliable narrator, quietly disappears. And in that exact stretch, you are being tested, not by opportunity, but by pressure. Here's something worth remembering. The real value of any pursuit isn't only what it hands you at the end. It's also who you become while pursuing it. And that becoming is decided in moments exactly like this. Most people don't fail because they lack capability. They fail because they exit too early. They begin with a burst of energy. They move forward on a wave of hope and excitement. But once reality settles in, they slow their pace. Then they stop entirely. Not because the original dream was flawed, but because the discipline required to sustain it never showed up. That's the fork in the road where everything splits. The people who eventually succeed do something different at that fork. They refuse to quit. Not because refusing feels good, but because they made a decision earlier. And that earlier decision becomes their anchor when the present moment gets stormy. When life turns difficult, they hold their position. When results are delayed, they remain patient. When doubt creeps in, they keep their attention fixed. Success, when you strip away the mythology around it, is really just a handful of simple disciplines, repeated daily without exception. And one of the most important of those disciplines is simply continuing on the days you don't feel like it. Ask yourself something honestly. How many times have you come close to quitting something, close to walking away, close to giving up entirely, but some quieter, steadier voice inside refused to let you? That voice was your own potential, speaking up at exactly the right time. And here's something worth knowing. Every person who's ever achieved anything significant has felt that same pull toward quitting. Doubt, exhaustion, uncertainty. They simply chose not to obey those feelings. They obeyed the decision instead. That's the entire difference. In one sentence, feelings are temporary, but decisions create direction. And what you eventually become is a direct function of what you choose to repeat. So let your decision be unmistakably clear. I will not quit. Not when it's hard. Not when it's slow. Not when nobody's watching and there's no credit to claim. Quitting always feels reasonable in the moment it happens, but it leaves behind a weight that doesn't go away quietly. Regret has a long memory. Let's go a layer deeper still. The road toward anything worthwhile is rarely a straight line. It bends, it detours, it doubles back, it throws obstacles in your path that weren't on the original map. If you expect smoothness, you'll be repeatedly disappointed. But if you expect resistance, you'll walk in prepared. And preparation changes how resistance feels. Real value isn't paid out by the hour. It's paid out by the contribution made within that hour. And contribution is built through persistence. The simple, unglamorous act of staying in the game, showing up again, improving incrementally, even when it's uncomfortable to do so. Every time you decline to quit, something inside you gets reinforced. your discipline strengthens, your resilience strengthens, your self-trust strengthens. And slowly, almost without your noticing, you become a different version of yourself. Sturdier, more focused, more capable. Not because your circumstances transformed, but because you did. There will be moments when quitting sounds entirely reasonable. This is too hard. This is taking too long. Maybe this just isn't for me. But notice, those thoughts are temporary residents, not permanent truths. They're pressure, dressed up as logic. And pressure always eventually leaves the room. But results, the ones you stayed for, remain. Don't let a passing emotional weather system make a permanent decision on your behalf. Discipline is the bridge connecting where you are to where you're trying to go. Stay on that bridge. Don't step off halfway across out of impatience. Because what you've been working toward is often just ahead. But you'll only reach it if you refuse to turn back. You don't need to be flawless. You need to be persistent. You don't need to be the fastest person on the road. You simply need to keep your feet moving. Because the truth, when you strip away every complication, is fairly simple. The people who refuse to quit are, with remarkable consistency, the people who eventually win. So say it once more, with full conviction. I'm going to make it, and I will not quit. Chapter 5, Reframing Failure.
Let's talk honestly about failure, because most people misunderstand it badly. They fear it. They avoid it like it's contagious. They hide from it as though it diagnoses something permanently wrong with them, as though it announces the end of the story. None of that is accurate. Failure is not a verdict. It's feedback. Say that again slowly. Failure is feedback. It tells you what isn't working yet. It points toward what needs adjustment. It reveals where your approach needs revision. And here's something worth holding on to. What you ultimately gain by reaching a goal often matters less than who you become in the process of chasing it. Every person who has built something meaningful has also failed, often repeatedly and often painfully. But they didn't treat the failure as a closing chapter. They treated it as a lesson embedded inside the process. Every mistake carries information. Every setback carries a small piece of wisdom. Every disappointment, properly examined, builds a little more judgment. But only for the person who keeps moving long enough to extract the lesson. Here's the uncomfortable part. Most people stop the moment failure shows up. They attempt something once, it doesn't work on the first try, and they conclude the whole thing is impossible. Not because it actually was, but because continuing felt uncomfortable. And comfort, frankly, has quietly destroyed more dreams than failure ever has. Achievement was never designed for the lazy thinker. It belongs to the disciplined doer, the one willing to sit in discomfort a little longer than everyone else. Consider this. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight. Before it ever breaks the surface, it spends time underground, in the dark, hidden, completely unseen by anyone. That underground time isn't failure. It's growth happening where nobody can witness it yet. Your life works the same way. You're growing even on the days you can't see it. Even on the days when nothing visibly appears to be working, something is quietly underway. Here's a mistake many people make without realizing it. They judge their entire future by their present results. But your current results are not your final chapter. They're just a data point, a single frame in a much longer film. Your future isn't dictated by your past. It's shaped by the decisions you're making right now, in this present moment. So what's the correct response when you fail? Not quitting, not complaining, not abandoning belief in the outcome. You adjust your approach. You extract the lesson. You continue forward. That's what the people who eventually succeed actually do. They don't sidestep failure, they put it to work. Here's a simple truth worth remembering. Every time you fail and keep going anyway, you become a little harder to defeat. Every setback you survive adds to your resilience. Every mistake you genuinely learn from sharpens your judgment, until eventually, failure stops being something that stops you and becomes something that strengthens you instead. The goal was never to eliminate the struggle. It's to eliminate the weakness the struggle exposed. Bring all of that together, and here's the conclusion. You have to change your relationship with failure if you want to go anywhere meaningful. Stop interpreting it as rejection. Start interpreting it as direction. Stop treating it like an ending. Start treating it as a normal, expected part of the route. Because the path toward anything worthwhile is never a straight line. It's full of detours, delays, course corrections. Once you genuinely understand that, you stop quitting at the first sign of resistance. You're not failing. You're learning. You're not behind. You're developing. You're not stuck. You're building. Even when the building is invisible from the outside. The only failure that's truly final is the failure to attempt again. So try again, and then again. Because each attempt moves you measurably closer, even the ones that don't look like progress at the time. Failure was never the opposite of success. It's simply one of the roads leading toward it. So don't run from it. Don't avoid it. Don't let it talk you into stopping. Use it. Learn from it. Let it strengthen you. And keep walking, because your story isn't finished. In a meaningful sense, it's only just getting underway. Chapter 6, the final word. Now let's draw all of this together, slowly and honestly.
Look back across your own journey. Not just the easy stretches, but the genuinely hard ones. The moments you considered quitting. The moments you doubted whether any of it was worth the effort. The moments nothing seemed to be moving forward no matter what you tried. And yet, here's the part worth noticing. You're still here, still standing, still moving, even if the pace has been uneven. That fact alone is saying something important. Your story isn't finished. There's more left in you than you've given yourself credit for. You are not defined by your starting point. You're defined by how far you're willing to keep walking after the starting point fades into the distance. Every person who's ever built something worth having has walked through stretches of struggle, stretches of silence, stretches of uncertainty, where nothing seemed to be confirming that the effort was worthwhile. But somewhere along the way, they made a firm decision. I will not quit. And that decision, more than any single talent or advantage, is what changed everything for them. Achievement is rarely built in comfort. It's built in persistence, in the quiet hours nobody's watching, in the unglamorous repetition that never makes it into anyone's highlight reel. That's where the real foundation gets poured. So ask yourself honestly, when things get genuinely difficult, what do you actually do? Do you retreat or do you lean forward? Do you let doubt take the wheel or do you trust a process you've already committed to? Because this is precisely where things become real. Success was never some elaborate secret. It's a small set of disciplines, practiced daily, without exception. And one of the most important among them is the simple refusal to quit. Not because quitting is hard to do, but because the dream on the other side matters more than the discomfort standing in front of it. There will be entire stretches where progress feels invisible. Stretches where motivation evaporates and doesn't return on schedule. Stretches where it genuinely feels like nothing is changing. But none of that means nothing is happening underneath the surface. Growth is frequently silent. Progress is frequently unseen, right up until the moment it isn't. Strength is very often built quietly, in the background, long before it ever becomes visible to anyone else. And if you exit too early, you'll never get to witness what was actually being constructed inside you the whole time. So stay consistent, stay committed to the thing you decided on day one you were going to see through. Your ambition isn't random, and it isn't an accident. It's a signal pointing towards something genuinely possible for you, but only if you stay the course long enough to reach it. Only if you keep moving when moving is unglamorous. Only if you refuse to surrender the moment the path gets difficult. That, in the end, is the dividing line between the people who merely wish for something and the people who eventually become it. Here is the final truth, and it's worth carrying with you. You may not control how quickly things unfold. You may not control how smooth or rough the path turns out to be. You may not control every obstacle placed in front of you, but you do control one thing, fully and completely, your decision to keep going. And that one thing, it turns out, is everything. Discipline is the bridge between where you stand now and where you're trying to arrive. So walk that bridge, one deliberate step at a time, one ordinary day at a time. Even when the walking is hard, even when the pace feels slow, even when it costs you something to keep moving. Because on the far side of that bridge is everything you've been quietly working toward. So let this be the closing thought. No matter how long it takes, no matter how steep the climb becomes, no matter how many times you stumble along the way, decide. Not as a passing feeling, not as a temporary burst of enthusiasm, but as a deep, settled, unshakable conviction. I am going to make it. And beyond that, I will not quit. That's the entire difference, distilled into 2 short sentences. That's the power. That's the commitment. And once you genuinely believe it, once you actually live it out, day after unremarkable day, nothing standing in your way will be enough to stop you. You will make it.